But there are going to be some people who are upset that I'm releasing this information, because Build the Earth is not a cabal of spiritually cleansed and virtuously perfect individuals. Mistakes were made, wars were fought, and the challenge of building the world itself colliding with human nature led to bizarre oddities and absurdities. So today, I'll be pulling open the curtain on all of that in Iceberg fashion, starting with the most visible layers that most of you may know about, then going deeper and deeper. Level 1. TPLL. Everyone knows about TPLL at this point. Right-click anywhere in the world on Google, click on this number, enter the command, and paste the number in Minecraft, and it teleports you to that exact spot in-game. If you extrapolate from this tiny little command, you can build the entire world. This function has developed a sort of religious adherence in the project, but what you didn't know is that this command isn't always infallible. When you're dividing this world up into little cubes and you right-click on an area, even if you're in the most accurate area, very often TPLL will split the difference when it's very close to being on the border of a single block, messing up the symmetry of your outline or whatever you're trying to build. So you fix it yourself. And parking lots? If you try to TPLL those little divider paint lines, it ends up looking awful. We gave up on TPLL for parking lot divider lines a long time ago and just use nice symmetrical patterns that make them look nice, proving that TPLL isn't the gold standard in the project. Builders are. Build the Earth, Mr. Beast video. It's pretty well known to most that very early on in Mr. Beast gaming, they contacted us for a collaboration which led to the production of this video. But what many of you may not know is that the collaboration led to 2 other video collaborations, building interiors for Raleigh, being Mr. Beast's hometown, so they could play hide and seek, and a building competition in which our New York team built a harbor, which didn't end up being used, and BT, Germany, building a huge fantasy map, which ended up earning a huge cash prize of $15,000. There were even further gaming collaborations that were in the works that I'm not allowed to talk about since the videos haven't been released yet. Unfortunately, it seems that many of Mr. Beast's side channels seem to be in a production limbo at this point, including Mr. Beast Gaming, so it's unknown if these will ever see the light of day. Build it 1-to-1. Everyone knows about the Pippen-led build team and the video series named The Aforementioned. We built a different place every month and pimped out the map to the respected lords of the area. But what was known to no one but a few was some of the failed events and things that were planned but never ended up happening. Now, because the final Seattle event ended the team, things that were planned but never ended up happening were things like Monaco Part 2, the Rebuild Africa event mentioned in the griefing video. We also had a Mexico event scheduled, but the team couldn't get their progress map made available to us by the 1st of the month on the hour that we were starting, so we ended up taking the month off. Over the years, we investigated a few insane ideas, one of them being building the entire Great Wall of China. Doing it manually, a very impossible task, but my idea was developing some kind of brush that could just create the wall pattern as you fly, and then maybe go back and quickly edit each aberration and change in the design as it goes across the country. Many teams eventually developed a road brush, which allowed you to produce finished roads very quickly, so it wasn't outside the realm of possibility. But one of my favorite ideas that the planning team was getting into, which ultimately the team voted against in a 55-45 split, was plans to make an actual 1-to-1 scale Death Star. Being the size of a small planet, the spherical starting shell would have to be generated with the world, as World Edit could never hope to build it. The thing itself would be so insanely big, you couldn't fly around it to work on it. We would have had to make some sort of ease of teleport system where you can get around to specific points instantly as opposed to trying to travel around it with your character. The whole thing normally would have been impossible to see, so we were investigating compatibility with Porkchop's Far2Plane mod, which would allow you to see it with no extra wear and tear on the hardware. It's so massive that in Star Wars lore, no 1-to-1 scale detailed plans of the station exist on the macro scale of demonstrating features like the mess of buildings and turrets the rebels were flying around in A New Hope. It's inconceivable to me how cool this would have been to create and work on, but as it turns out, the builders just wanted to build the Earth. Go figure. Level 2. Build the Earth's staff for several years have actually hosted a Build the Earth Olympics for the project. Like in real life, a country would be selected to host the event, and then, usually in an urban location, a cluster of 8 to 12 blocks would be selected, one of them for each of the best teams around the world to work on. You would have a set amount of time, and when the time is up, the judges would survey the quality of each block. This competition seemed to drive the quality meta in the project to new and interesting ways, as each team would think of really creative and interesting solutions to animate the concrete jungle of an urban setting to new and more fascinating levels of Minecraft detail. Minefact Hate. This has been mentioned in previous videos, but Minefact has been developing a system for building the Earth in Minecraft, specifically New York, long before I made the first video on the project. So when popularity for the idea exploded, he brought his resources to the project and led Team New York. His efficient and user-friendly system made insane progress, and being the odd golden goose in comparison to the rest of the team's model, there developed a hostile rivalry between him and other teams. Hate for the Minefact system was extremely commonplace in the beginning of the project, but his system brought results. New York could be as much as 40% of the entire world's progress, which over time, people couldn't continue to deny. He was eventually promoted to admin, and today drives all of Build the Earth development, the most successful regional team, and is one of the most well-respected members in the community. In Minefact we trust. Inaccurate terrain. The original Terra 1-to-1 mod for this project uses OpenStreetMaps, which is basically an open source alternative to Google Maps. The only problem is it's way behind. The sourced terrain, elevation, and everything is off pretty much everywhere you go. In most places, it was only off by a little bit, and for a guy like me, that doesn't really sound like much of a problem. Only redo it in the most egregious of places where it's the worst. But these builders, they're obsessed with the accuracy. I think it's gotten far enough to the point of being a detriment to the project. But that's neither here nor there. Point is, it would be great to get some better sources. Luckily, many countries' governments have publicly available LiDAR data that is accurate right down to the meter, so you don't have to change almost anything. Other countries are not so fortunate, and so in addition to building all the buildings, we have to continue to redo and improve the Earth's terrain too. Now it's time to go a bit deeper. This is gonna get saucy. Buckle your seatbelts. Level 3, the Tokyo Riot. Back in the summer of 2020, just as the project was in its birthing contractions, I had an idea to add a second city to the Minefact system, which would end up creating competition and thus increase productivity. We had decided that Tokyo was the perfect contrast to New York, but you see, right when the project started, Minefact had a few awkward scuffles with people who had made claims in New York before being able to totally take control of the area himself in order to use his system to build it. Tokyo was already established with many claims from builders native to the area, and these builders protested hard. And then other builders from all parts of the project rallied around them. My reasoning against the protest was this. The Minefact system would allow for efficient building that would get thousands and eventually tens of thousands of buildings in Tokyo to be completed. Team Japan had around 20 active builders from the start, and they wouldn't achieve the same scale of progress alone. Yet they still found the idea of a wide-scale system building Tokyo to be abhorrent. But I reasoned that it's very likely that at least half of these builders within a few years would have left the project anyway. Ultimately, we had to back down and add Amsterdam to the Minefact system instead, which, unlike Tokyo, significantly less people were interested in, and it ultimately ended up being cancelled. This was a really disturbing moment for me. I realized that I created a project in which people could join the project, shout down any proposed radical changes to the system that could have been to the project's benefit, and then just as soon disappear into the ether of the internet again. And I would just be stuck here, having to pick up the pieces. Now, years later, we can analyze the aftermath. As much as the petty version of me would love to self-vindicate by seeing whether or not my claims would turn out to be true, I think it's more important to point out that having two cities in the Minefact system at once is probably just a bad idea in general. But it's possible that Tokyo, with its higher popularity, would have taken off and a healthy rivalry between the cities would have ensued like I hoped. But the most disturbing part of this to me was the only hope we had at that point for completing a city with over 1 million buildings was the Minefact system. and that the Japanese builders would rather just have Tokyo be largely empty rather than created with a global effort in a manner that they would have disapproved of. To my increasing horror over the next few years, I would find that preferring an empty, uncompleted map as opposed to completed in a way that they don't approve of would be a much more prevalent mindset in the community than I would have ever expected. But Team Japan has created some amazing things over the years and made great progress, my favorite being Ninoshima Island, a completely finished island containing 400 structures built by a single builder in just 40 days. Killing Mojang's Minecraft Earth. This one's kind of cheeky and suggested because the timelines fit exactly. Our project is born in March of 2020, and from that moment onward, Minecraft Earth started falling in popularity and use until it was eventually canceled in June 2021. The obvious and actual answer to its cancellation is because it's a real-life VR-type Minecraft game, and the pandemic obviously impacted those games severely. But things like Pokemon Go survived, whereas Minecraft Earth didn't. We outlived Minecraft Earth, whether it's because of the pandemic or because Minecraft Earth as a game may have left more to be desired, or both. The secret Chinese team. I made a video on why we can't build China. Long story short, they scramble their map data so that when you look at it on something like Google, it's all confusing and makes no sense. They've outlawed mapping of China and have only endorsed a dozen or so Chinese mapping companies that exclusively operate within the country and have attempted to persecute individuals or groups who endeavor to create maps of China. And I claimed in the video that we didn't have a Chinese team, but that was only partially true. While I was writing that script, Build the Earth regulars, because they're bored and hey, why not, created their own China team comprised entirely of foreigners, and were angry that I claimed we didn't have one in the video. Now, I don't think it's a good idea for this team to exist, but I've obviously resigned from leading the project because everyone loves to crawl out of the woodwork to disagree with me and my attempts at counseling caution. But the new Team China aside, there was actually another secret Team China back in 2020 comprised of Chinese within the country building for the project, even though International Minecraft and Discord, which are banned in China, are required for a team to operate. They built a few areas and released a video on the Chinese equivalent of YouTube to showcase it, before ending the team for good, realizing how difficult it was to operate the team with these added restrictions. Level 4. Building Jeffrey Epstein's Island. When you're building the entire world, that includes everything. So the endeavor is not going to go off completely without controversy. There's been a lot of users over the years attempting to build edgy things or locations, but one particular builder, whose name will remain anonymous, decided to start the team BTE Controversy, dedicated to building controversial places, including Epstein Island, which I believe they finished. The idea of building controversial locations attracted edgelords on Discord far and wide, and the team started picking up traction until it was revealed that the owner was lying about many outlandish details about his life, including claiming to be a real estate investor, which ended up crashing the team. Since then, this individual has actually made a genuine attempt at remorse and to repair his reputation in the community, but the team remains a graveyard, much like the previous cultural era of edgy humor that inspired it. The building count is wrong. So we did a video asking how far we are in building the Earth in Minecraft, in which I asked all team leaders to perform a census in terms of how many buildings have been completed. And I could tell which teams genuinely counted to the best of their ability, and which ones didn't count at all and just gave me a random estimate. Some teams admitted that it was just an estimate, and props to them, but the horrifying realization here is that tracking progress is a giant mess and most teams have no idea exactly how far they are. Even the extremely organized and most successful Mindfact system records progress in something called projects, which could contain just one building or 9 buildings. So even New York is a total estimate. The reviewers, when approving a submitted project, have a field of data points they have to fill out, and all we had to do was add building count to this form from the beginning, and it would have taken an extra 4 seconds for all reviewers to count the buildings in the project and enter that value into the form. This frustrated me so much that I suggested to Mindfact that we add that, and then I could go back personally and review all 20,000 completed projects so far and determine their building count so we could finally get a real estimate. But I'm pretty busy. I haven't been able to slot that into the schedule yet. All single-player progress lost. This one is really all on me. At the beginning of the project, my plan was that we're all gonna build in single-player and then combine everything together. That's an impossible and stupid way to do it. So the community immediately formed servers for people to build together, but single-player building was still an option. Unfortunately, despite records of an immense population of single-player builders in the records, we've received almost no maps of their progress via the website. And the explanation is simple. When builders in our project go inactive, they're just gone. For single-player builders, they don't go, I'm gonna become inactive soon. I better upload my progress to the website so the project can receive the work. They just don't bother. When a builder wants to build alone, they can do it on a server, and when they retire from the project and disappear into the ether, we then still have the progress. So over the years, the BTE bureaucracy eventually phased single player out as an option. And that one really was my fault. I love the concept of an individual and solo building, and single player building just seems so awesome to me. I let it cloud my judgment, and I didn't foresee these types of issues. Sorry guys. Level 5. New Jersey was built in the ocean. This story is nuts. Back in 2020, I'm sure you're all familiar with the original videos I made on this project, namely where we were trying to figure out a projection with the least amount of world distortion possible. Once we had finally come up with it and released it in the world generator options, the teams selected it as their starting map and were ready to go. But there was one team that didn't have a correct parameter. Team New Jersey had selected an incorrect axis orientation, which means that their entire map was generating off by 90 degrees, a right angle. Because orientation for TPLL is calculated with projection settings math in mind, you would always teleport to the correct spot, but where that was actually teleporting you in terms of the world was completely wrong. As it was, they were building New Jersey somewhere in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Australia, and they didn't even realize the error until the fall of 2020. Through the game of telephone throughout the project, the error turned into a rumor that they had selected the wrong projection. And this is what I had heard. If that was true, the distortion would have been so different, everything would have been so different, that they would have been completely screwed and had no chance. Since that was the rumor, PR for the team really took a hit, and it was being considered by some that it should be considered a separate project. Many teams protested this and unified in solidarity behind New Jersey by rotating their Discord team icons by 90 degrees. That is awesome. So since it was just that the orientation was off by a 90-degree angle, they had a chance to fix things. Still no picnic, considering that for the last 6 months, New Jersey had been building a wealth of progress in their state, every single bit of it pointing in the wrong direction and on the wrong hemisphere of the planet. And they did it for several more years, as it took their developers that much time to develop a script that would manipulate all of the world's existed loaded chunks and built data to be reoriented correctly. They even met in real life at Liberty State Park near the Statue of Liberty and set up their computers together on park benches to continue work on the problem. And eventually, they achieved it. The terrain and built progress was oriented correctly, and Build the Earth was right again. Me personally, I kind of preferred New Jersey in the ocean. It would be an excellent military staging ground for the United States to one day invade and conquer Australia. The project is impossible. So a lot of people have done math on this. It's estimated that the Earth has 4 billion buildings, meaning even if our project had millions of buildings, it would still potentially take centuries. This realization slowly depressed the community until they morphed their priorities in order to communally survive, and now they're focused on maximizing the quality of what they put out. This unfortunately has slowed progress down and alienated casual builders, making the original goal of finishing even slower. At this rate, the project will never be finished. But the project does have one hope: innovation. Building in Minecraft is unnecessarily slow, but if we could shortcut all of those unnecessarily slow things by being able to shorten the length that it takes to bring our vision to life, we could build so much faster. Like if you imagine Elon Musk's Neuralink, literally you look at the house on Google Maps and you form an image of it in your mind strongly for about 15 seconds while the Minecraft Neuralink mod records the image. Some Build the Earth conversion shenanigans happen and boom, house done. Now we don't need to put a chip in our brain to finish this project. but things to increase efficiency and cut down house building times to a minute or less would literally speed up what builders could do by hundreds of times in speed or more. This would allow things to one day finish. We just need the vision to create it. Missing and dead builders. We've talked a few times about how things that we've built in this project will end up no longer standing in real life, yet continues to exist built in our maps. But what we haven't talked about is that people who work on this project will eventually die, their work immortalized forever in these maps as a warm reminder of their memory as a person and creative artistry. I did a few probes and couldn't actually find examples of this, except for possibly one that is quite familiar throughout the community, but that I haven't talked about on this channel yet. Rude Yeti was a passionate Build the Earth advocate who eventually was approved to be a moderator of the main Build the Earth Discord. He had a cheery demeanor that borderlined on robotic ChatGPT levels of emotional consistency. He became more and more involved with staff roles and tasks until he demonstrated one day that he was very good at developing pretty much anything. He was almost a savant. I got him much more involved in the project machinery, and he was developing amazing systems for things that we needed but had no one to fill the role. He got more and more involved in progressing the project systems. Everyone really liked him, and he had a promising future within the community. This guy was so awesome. If he were still around today, I probably would have contracted him to be the first PippenFTS developer at this point, but that wasn't gonna happen. On August 30th, 2021, Rude Yeti would send many messages in various discords across the network, including communication in my DMs, which would be the last messages his Discord account would ever send. One of the most active Build the Earth members and a hero of the community suddenly disappeared and would never log into his Discord account again. It was relatively known what state and area he lived in, and a hurricane was set to hit that area around this time, and he had mentioned something about it in the previous week. No one knows what happened to him to this day. It is possible that Rude Yeti is dead, but I like to think the hurricane turned his life upside down. He realized he was spending most of his life on this project and needed to get his life in order, and deleted Discord forever to do it. But we may never know. If anyone has any information regarding the survival of Rude Yeti, it would be very much appreciated. It's been over 2 years now, but he is terribly missed, and in solidarity, we keep his staff and team leader roles on Build the Earth Discord to this day. Thanks for watching, and a huge thanks to our awesome patrons, Comrade Bake DPRK, Connor L, Cristiano Frazanetti, and Solly. I think about you guys every time I'm shucking my oysters.